We're all set? Good evening. Welcome to the October 23rd Village Board meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Um, Trustee Bazemore,
Present.
Trustee Levin,
Present.
Trustee Herrera,
Present.
Trustee Quesada,
Present.
Mayor Garrity.
Present. I'm going to suggest that we hold mayors and trustees announcements until after the special presentation, but we do need to jump to the resolution related to the appointment.
Okay, so the
Is it me?
swearing,
Oh, they actually have it as, oh, yeah, okay, good. Okay.
the swearing in of new police officer Pasquale F. Santucci. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby appoints Pasquale F. Santucci, a 6-year police officer in the Village of Austining, effective October 23rd, 2019, at an annual salary of $110,452, 42 a fourth-year salary. Be it further resolved that this appointment is subject to a probationary period of not less than 12 nor more than 52 weeks. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye. And with that, I will welcome up Paul Santucci. Right. So you'll repeat after me.
All right.
I, Pasquale
So I gotta raise
Santucci,
my hand. I, Pasquale Santucci,
being duly sworn, state on my honor,
being duly sworn, state on my honor,
I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will never betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
I will always have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions.
Further, that I am a resident of the state of New York,
Further, that I am a resident of the state of New York,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
and I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of New York.
I will obey all the ordinances, rules, and regulations of the Village of Austining,
I will obey all the ordinances, rules, and regulations of the Village of Austining,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of police officer
in and for said Village of Austining, New York, to the best of my ability.
in and for the said Village of Austining, New York, to the best of my ability.
Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Should I do this? All right, cool. So he's okay with that. I think I have to introduce him. So Pasquale's been here before. This is not our first time doing this, so that's why he was so good with the oath. We've done this before. Was a police officer here from what years? 2013 to 16, and then took a brief stint with another department, and now come back because in a lot of places when law enforcement's not a place where people transfer a lot of jobs really often. People tend to take one job and stick with it. So sometimes there's bad feelings when people leave, but when folks leave from Austining, we tell you you can always come home. So we're glad to have you back here. I think like half the staff won't know who he is because you guys are all really new here still. So that's Pasquale. He's been here before. He's kind of senior, but not really now. We'll figure all that out later. For those that haven't met Pasquale a few years back, you may recall that when we first got our Axon body cameras and wearing them all the time, he was made famous by a rescue on Croton Avenue of a family suffering from a carbon monoxide emergency where he and Officer DeJesus had actually carried unconscious folks out of that house and did some real life-saving there. So here as an Austining police officer, he's already got some of the highest awards you can get, and that's the standard we're going to go with from here on out. Good? All right, welcome home.
Anybody would like to take some pictures, come on up, and then we'll take a brief recess for photos and get back to the rest of our meeting. What? Yes, sure. Board of Trustees? if you have any announcements for tonight? Montel, you have any announcements for tonight? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Okay, moving on to mayor's and trustees announcements.
Alrighty. Any trustees with announcements? Trustee Herrera?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So this Saturday is the fourth annual Halloween Kids and Pet Parade. It's going to be on Saturday, October 26th, 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. And pretty sure the meetup is the Ossining Elks Lodge, and they finish up with a fall small festival in front of Mike Briscoe Music, and that's going to be going on from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's part of the Ossining Chamber of Commerce's Uptown initiative. So if you see a lot of dogs and cats and animals and children dressed up together, it's a planned event going up Croton Avenue from 11 to 1 this Saturday. Thank you.
Anybody else with announcements? Alrighty, I have a few. Tomorrow, I believe this is still happening, Karen, with the concrete.
Yes, the concrete pour at the Broadway Bridge is scheduled for early tomorrow morning.
Great. So, if you have tried to drive down Broadway for a very long time now, you've been very frustrated. No more so than those of us in village government who thought this was going to be done a long time ago, but progress is being made. So that means slightly more inconvenience than usual because parking will be very limited at the community center as they are pouring concrete on the Broadway Bridge. So be mindful of that if you're planning to go to the community center tomorrow, Thursday the 24th. Also, I'll stick with great things happening at the community center. Early voting, New York State, Albany has changed our voting laws. So you have many, many choices to find at your convenience when you want to vote. Beginning this Saturday, October 26th, is the first day of early voting, and that continues through November 3rd. If you want to vote in early voting, that is at the community center. Visit the Westchester Board of Elections website. The voting takes place at slightly different time frames each of those 9 days of early voting, and it's over 2 weekends, as I said, from October 26th through November 3rd. Then you actually can't vote on Monday, November 4th. That's your off day. But if you prefer to vote on the traditional election day, go to your regular polling place November 5th. So regular election day is Tuesday, November 5th at your regular polling place. Early voting takes place at the community center from October 26th through November 3rd. Next Tuesday, October 29th, please join us at a meeting happening at the library from 7 to 8:30. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong. That is being hosted by the village's Landlord-Tenant Relations Council. You'll get to, this is the first time they've held a meeting of this nature. The focus of their agenda will be to update folks on changes to New York State laws related to landlords and tenants. So if you are a landlord or a tenant, then please do join us. And they will also be giving some information about the role that they play and how they might be able to assist anyone who is a landlord or a tenant, or even if you live next door to a building or a house that has tenants in it. And they're here to, they're a volunteer board appointed by us, some landlords, some tenants, some folks who are neither landlords nor tenants, and they work with village staff to help facilitate communication and provide education to the community. And this is their first public meeting of this nature, so I hope you will join us next Tuesday, October 29th from 7 until 8:30 at the Ossining Public Library. Anything else? All right, Madam Clerk.
Moving on to administrative reports. Village Manager Karen Dottori.
Thank you. Good evening. So I just want to update everybody. Comprehensive Plan Committee, Steering Committee met on October 8th, and we had a very good discussion to ensure that the request for proposal reflected the scope of work that we want to have a community vision that encompasses feedback from all segments of our diverse community, that provides an analysis of historical and current policies that have led to social and economic disparities, as well as an analysis of census and census tract data, and an exploration of strategies and tools that will promote community well-being and the well-being of people of color and people of low and moderate incomes to increase economic opportunity, access to transportation, housing options, health, and safety. And the RFP was issued on October 18th, and we look forward to getting submissions by November 15th. It can be found on the village website, and you can get a copy from the clerk's office or from me. On October 2nd, I attended the E for All Entrepreneurship for All Conference or Summit in Lowell, Massachusetts, and I attended with Austining Innovates founders Henry Welt and Abby Lewis, along with the owner of Craven Jamaican and some other representative from Neighbors Link to, Hudson Link, to witness what E4All has done in many communities in Massachusetts. And it was really quite enlightening and energizing experience. It was a little bit like being on Shark Tank, because we met a lot of the entrepreneurs and talked about their business. They talked about their business ideas and how E4All had supported them. And not only were they supported and they developed thriving businesses, but they also talked about the job creation and how this particular organization is being used to fuel economic development in places like Berkshire County and other places, in addition to Lowell, Massachusetts. So it was a really interesting experience and lots of good learning for Austining to glean. On the 8th, we also had a rom-com movie that we don't know the title of yet, was filmed at Dee Dee's Diner. So that's another movie to the list of movies that are filmed in Austining. We have nearly completed the land use board interviews for the planning board, the zoning board, and the historic preservation committee, and we'll be announcing those appointments soon. So you will be getting information from me on that, and we're checking with some people on there, confirming their availability, but we think that we've got some really good candidates for those positions. We were really thrilled at the number of people who applied for these positions. Unfortunately, more people than we have positions for, but we're looking to get them involved in other ways because there's a tremendous amount of interest in getting involved in Austining. So that was really good news. The village also is in the process of reviewing site concepts that came in for the DPW site for our request for qualifications. And we should be getting back to the board with our recommendations on those site plans, site plan concepts. This is, so everybody knows and remembers, this is talking about doing mixed use, mixed income housing down at the DPW site. And the site would also, in conjunction with the plans, we're looking at ways to continue the Sing Sing Kill and create a public space there, as well as to make greater connectivity to Upper Main Street. So that is coming soon. Next week, we'll be hearing from Joe Augustinelli in our building department about our plans for implementing the online capacity for planning and building permits. So that's something that we'd like to get going in first quarter of 2020. So we'll have a discussion about that at next week's work session. On October 9th, I attended a meeting of the Hudson Valley Greenway where the village was awarded a matching grant of $18,000 for its comprehensive plan. And the Greenway is a New York State agency that works with communities on a voluntary basis to assist in the development of local land use plans and programs related to Greenway criteria. We are very excited that we got some extra funding for the comp plan. On October 7th, we hosted a tour of the Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant for Senator David Carlucci, and the village was represented by the mayor, DPW Superintendent Paul Frioli, our village water and superintendent Andy Teese, Ruby Wells of Hazen and Sawyer, our consulting firm who's designing the new plant, and myself. And the purpose of this visit was to show the senator our current waterworks facility and really inform him about the work that we're doing and how we're providing water for our residents, as well as to inform him of our plans to upgrade the facility as a critically important municipal shared service in partnership with the town of Ossining. On the 10th, I attended the New York State City County Managers Association. They had this was their fall seminar, and there was a keynote presentation. Their keynote presentation was on cybersecurity, which was enormously interesting, and we got a lot of really good information. Thankfully, we have a lot of these things in place to prevent the threat of cybersecurity scams and ransom and other things that I didn't even know were possible. But we also got some good insight on how we can better do training for employees on phishing scams and other cyber crimes. And we talked about the Broadway Bridge, but also paving is complete now on Walden Road. Repairs to Croton Street, I believe, are nearly complete. And we look forward to having the Broadway Bridge done by the end of the year. So thank you.
Madam Manager,
Yes.
is there an update on the a complete count committee here in the Village of Ossining?
We don't have an update right now, but maybe the mayor wants to talk. I know you were in some meetings recently, or was that now? Maybe I'm misspeaking.
It was just that they did the they're looking for to hire people, and so they did on Monday they did the recruitment session,
recruitment,
which we should remind people that you can go online to the census jobs. They are hiring, and it's $21 an hour for part-time work, and actually there's some positions that are even higher than that. So everyone is encouraged to, and the more people that apply from Ossining, the greater likelihood it is that people in our community will be responsive. We want to have people from Ossining that are working for the census. Having local people is helpful in connecting with the community and getting the community to be responsive and understand why it's so important. We have not had a meeting yet of the stakeholders since the initial meeting that we had with the census. We've just, the meeting where we spoke with anyway, no.
Okay.
The local stakeholders have not met in the last month since we spoke.
Okay. So, Madam Manager, I know that the Village of Portchester, they definitely have a complete count committee, but I also know that the village is also putting some elbow grease behind the census this year. If you think it's useful, you might want to make a call to the village manager over there and see pick his brain about some of those ideas as well.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Martha. Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. There are two resolutions this evening calling for public hearings, both to be scheduled, if approved by the board, on the 6th of November. The first is with regard to proposed Local Law 9 of 2019, which is up on the village's website and is part of the agenda packet, and that is to include a section under the charter for the appointment by the village manager of an assistant village manager. The second public hearing is the first one that we have had under our new street naming policy, and this is to call for public hearing with regard to the naming of the intersection of Croton Avenue and Sherman Place for James Drohan Sr. The board has received the letter from the village historian Dana White, and that is also made a part of this application, and we look forward to both of those public hearings on the 6th of November. Thank you.
Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Good evening. First announcement, just looking towards the calendar now as we get into the fall months, the rainy, the leaves, and the wind starts coming out. We recently experienced one of our first significant power outages of the year. So just a reminder to everybody, if you have a power outage, the appropriate way to report that would be to go to coned.com. They prefer it to be through their website. There are phone numbers there, but they're, by all accounts, leading you to do it through the website. Also, just so people know, you can monitor your power outages on that website by going to coned.com. And you can see real-time information on where power is out and anywhere that crews might be, and projections for when the power may come back on. In this last case, we were pretty satisfied that Con Ed was here in a reasonable period of time and did everything they could. It took some time to get everybody back up and running, but they were here fairly immediately to get us back to full service. Last weekend, the Ossining PBA hosted their 5K down at the waterfront. That was a nice change and something new for the community to have a 5K run down by the waterfront. They raised money down there for the Stephen Sillers Tunnels to Tower Fund, so that was a good one. This week, we also started a new program. It's not Coffee with a Cop, it's Coffee with Community Leaders. It sounds suspiciously like Coffee with a Cop. Somebody seems to have borrowed that name. But with the Family Resource Center at Park School, Detective Chavez has begun attending meetings there and in furtherance of our mission to better connect with parents and family members within our community. So he had a first session there. It was a good experience. We expect for that to keep going on a regular basis for the foreseeable future. Today, we joined members of the community and students at Ossining High School for the Craig Witch Memorial Ceremony today. On this date in 1983, Lance Corporal Craig Witch of Ossining, a 1982 graduate of Ossining High School, an Ossining resident, and a Marine, was killed in the bombing of the Beirut, Lebanon Marine Barracks in a terrorist activity. So nice to see all the students out there and community members there to honor his memory. Coming up, we've got our Halloween trunk or treat on Main Street, October 31st. That is from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And lots of good stuff coming up with that. So look for more announcements coming. That's all we got for tonight.
Chief, I'm glad you made mention of the memorial ceremony this morning, and today is in fact, we've proclaimed it to be Lance Corporal Craig Weish Day here in the village of Ossining. We presented a proclamation to that effect to his family. His brother and his cousins were there today, and it was a moving ceremony with a number of students who came out for the ceremony, as well as staff members and people who attended Ossining High School with the Lance Corporal, which he graduated from Ossining High School just a year before. He was in Beirut for that tragic event that we were speaking about today. And we were thankful to all of the veterans who were so present and helpful in that ceremony. It takes place every year. It's organized by the school. It was really a special event. Oh, just that it's yes. Well, while I still have the microphone, before we get down to real business, we do have an announcement. We have one more weekend left for Haunting at Cedar Lane Park. That's what we're calling it this year. Although if you want to get tickets, go to forestofears.org. I've got my tickets for Friday evening. And Chief, do you have anything special going on this weekend you wanted to tell us?
I got a couple things.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, I'll be honored at the Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement Association Gala. I'm their honoree this year, so that's really exciting for our department. As I always say, it's nice to receive the honors, but really is a reflection of all the good work that the folks that I work with do. And then this weekend, Captain George and I will be heading to Chicago for the International Association Chiefs of Police Annual Conference. On Sunday, I'll be presenting on Public Information Officer operations on an international stage, which is really exciting to be able to do. And then on Monday morning, I'll be receiving the 40 Under 40 award this year for the IACP. So a busy week.
Enjoy. Thank you very
Chief
much.
Sylvester, wasn't that on Friday night you're going to be honored?
Friday night is the Hispanic Association dinner.
Right.
Saturday, we've got to get out of
You
here.
said Thursday. You said tomorrow night. Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Is it
Yes,
still
your
Wednesday?
calendar is
Still
correct. It's
Wednesday.
Friday night.
quite a week.
It's Friday is the Hispanic police officers, and then this weekend is Chicago.
Friday
with all the
night
exciting-
will be with the Westchester Hispanic Law Enforcement
We
Association.
know it's hard to keep track when you
Yes,
have
Sunday
that.
we're
collecting
teaching,
two big
Monday we're
awards
doing
within
awards.
3 days is a lot to keep track of. but
Tuesday we'll be back to
very
work.
pleased for you. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Moving on to organization announcements. Is there anyone here who wishes to make an organization announcement? Okay, moving on to the village board resolutions. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on any of the resolutions this evening? Okay. Moving on to the resolutions then. Approval of minutes October 2nd, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the October 2nd, 2019 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Approval of voucher detail, October 16th, 2019. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated October 16th, 2019, and the amount of $860,430.48. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution in support of New York State Senate Bill S-6648 and New York State Assembly Bill A08545 requiring instruction on symbols of hate in New York State public schools. Whereas there has been an upsetting increase in hate crimes recently across our state and our nation, necessitating strong, immediate actions by our leaders to remedy this horrific reality. And whereas symbols of hate and hate speech have also permeated our community in Austining and Westchester County, calling attention to the need for education and action, both in our schools and communities as a whole. And whereas New York State Senate Bill number S-6648 and New York State Assembly Bill number A08545 propose mandating instruction in schools regarding symbols of hate as a part of the curriculum for grades 6 through 12. And whereas this proposed legislation is a step towards ensuring all students fully understand the meaning behind symbols of hate, like the swastika in news, but there are many opportunities to expand education beyond schools and into communities as a whole. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby supports New York State Senate Bill number S-6648 and New York State Assembly Bill number A08545 and urge the New York State Legislature to ensure passage of this important legislation. And be it further resolved that the Board of Trustees also encourages New York State legislators to consider adding community-wide education to this proposed legislation. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be distributed to the sponsors and co-sponsors of S-6648, A08545, Senators Kaminsky, Kaplan, Mayer, and Thomas, and Assembly members Levine and Glick, as well as Village of Austining State Representative Senator David Carlucci and Assemblywoman Sandy Gale. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, unfortunately, we've always had to deal with either a symbol of hate or the crime of a hate symbol or really anything associated with it. And unfortunately, right here in Westchester and in Austining and throughout the country, we've seen a rise in hate crime. So this is a great opportunity to make sure that our youth are educated and know what a hate symbol is and know what to do if they see one, and also know how to process that and how to move forward. So I am in fully support of the Senate bill and the Assembly bill. Thank you.
Comments from anyone else? No? No comment? Well, I want to thank our colleagues in the town who passed this recently, and they had a conversation with the local chapter of the NAACP about this in particular. The Albany is not in session right now, so I imagine this will be brought back when they come back into session in January. And just to clarify for anyone what our role in this is, we do from time to time pass resolutions supporting actions we would like to see other levels of government undertake, particularly New York State. And this is our way of saying to them that this is something that really matters to our community, and we hope they will take it seriously and be supportive of it. And we've done that in a number of instances, and sometimes it's really been initiatives that have been successful. Most recently, probably the one that was most high profile was the Green Light Initiative to allow for anyone, regardless of documentation status, to have a driver's license. And sometimes it helps for our folks in Albany to know that the local governments and the people in our community are paying attention to the work that they're doing. And in this case, I'm grateful to be able to support this initiative. Madam Clerk.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Call for a public hearing, proposed local law 9, 2019, titled A Local Law Amending Section CR-5 of the Village of Austining Charter, Powers and Duties of Village Manager. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on November 6, 2019 at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center, 95 Broadway, Austining, New York, or as soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard, to consider proposed local law 9-2019 titled A Local Law Amending Section CR-5 of the Village of Austining Charter, Powers and Duties of the Village Manager. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Just one C 3-5.
Or,
Duly noted.
Just, any comments on the board? Okay, at this point, we're just calling for a public hearing, so we'll discuss it in more detail in 2 weeks, assuming that this passes. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Proposed local law 9. Call for public hearing. Proposed honorary naming with intersection of Croton Avenue and Sherman Place for James Drohan Sr. Whereas, pursuant to the Village of Austining honorary street naming policy, the village manager received an application from James Drohan Jr. for the honorary naming of the intersection of Croton Avenue and Sherman Place for James Drohan Sr. And whereas, pursuant to the policy, the application was referred to the village historian for a report regarding the honorary street naming request. And whereas, on October 2nd, 2019, the village historian provided her report to the Board of Trustees. And whereas, pursuant to the policy, upon receiving the report from the village historian, the Board of Trustees shall schedule a public hearing at which time the public will be allowed to address the board on the proposed honorary street naming. The public also may submit written comments on the proposed honorary street naming. Notice of the public hearing shall be published in the village's official newspaper no less than 7 days before the scheduled hearing. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 p.m. on November 6, 2019 at the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center, 95 Broadway, Austining, New York, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be heard, to consider the application for the proposed honorary naming of the intersection of Croton Avenue and Sherman Place for James Drohan Sr. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? I just particularly want to, you said it correctly, I just want to call to folks' attention that this is at a different than usual location. So in 2 weeks, we will be having our legislative session. It will take place at the community center. And the reason for that is, in addition to holding the public hearings, the two that we just spoke about, which is the proposed local law 9 and the public hearing regarding the honorary street naming, Village Manager Karen DeTore will be presenting to us her first proposed budget as village manager. So the proposed manager's budget for 2020 will be, she'll be providing a presentation to try and distill pages and pages and pages of line items into some narrative so we can better understand what are the priorities and the goals that this budget is being hopefully going to address for us. So we're doing it in an unusual location. People are welcome to join us. We want to be able to have slideshow or whatever is able to support her presentation. So that's why we're in an unusual location. There'll be plenty of seating for anybody who wants to comment during the public hearings. So please join us then on November 6th, 7:30 at the community center. Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Finance budget modification, police-court facilities HVAC system upgrades capital project in 2019. Whereas by resolution dated February 6, 2019, that the Board of Trustees established a capital project in the amount of $250,000 to upgrade the HVAC system and the police court facilities to be funded by issuance of indebtedness. And whereas after the solicitation of competitive bids, the project cost estimate, including a contingency for temporary heat, is $292,000. And whereas the recommendation from the village treasurer is to finance the additional project cost of $42,000 from the general fund contingency account. Now therefore be it resolved that the 2019 police court facilities HVAC system upgrades capital project budget is increased by $42,000 to a project cost of $292,000, with the additional amount required to be funded with monies from the general fund contingency account as follows. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department appointment Senate H&L Company Number 1. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Roberto Garcia in Austining, New York, was elected an active member of the Senate H&L Company Number 1 for interior firefighting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department Hollow Hose Company Number 5, removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby removes Jose Nieves from the active roles of the Austining Fire Department Hollow Hose Company Number 5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department Austining Fire Police and Emergency Squad, removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby removes Edward Flores, Lisanne Stinson, and Katrina Oglesby from the active roles of the Austining Fire Police and Emergency Squad. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department Austining Hose Company Number 1, removal from active roles. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby removes Roberto Calisanova and Mark Texiera from the active roles of the Austining Fire Department Austining Hose Company Number 1. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there continuing business of the board?
I believe there is.
Mayor, yes, we have
Please.
some representatives here on behalf of Hudson Step. We have counsel for Hudson Step here tonight. I believe one of the contractors is here as well to just provide the board with a status report in accord with the prior resolution passed by this board.
Great, thanks.
Good
Welcome.
evening, Mayor
Welcome.
of the board. Thank you. Good to see you again. We have been working on the demolition. We needed to bring electrical service to the property, which is well underway. We just found out a couple weeks ago from Stewart that there was some soil contamination at the adjacent property where Austining Children's Center is being constructed. So we have hired a consultant to go in and test our soils to see if there is contamination. We hope there isn't. So they're working on doing that. So we want to get these soil samples back so that if there is extensive excavation that needs to be done, we can do it before anything else. So basically the soil contamination, I'm not sure if you're aware, is near the property line. So the property from 34 State Street dips down quite substantially. So our soil tests are going to have to be pretty deep. But we're hoping we don't find anything and that we can move forward. So the contractor, Dominic Leo, is here with me tonight. But we're working diligently towards fulfilling our obligations, making sure that our soil is not contaminated, and we'll continue to work on that.
Thank you. I think I'd like to get a little bit of sort of a clarification and a status update from staff on where we are in this process, because the intention had been, if we had been meeting last week, that had a resolution that we would have been voting on to.
Well, with
The
the
permit?
With the prior
not?
resolution provided was that the planned waterfront special permit shall be conditioned upon periodic review by the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees believes that a 3-month review of the permit is warranted. The applicant shall then comply, and that the permit shall expire no later than 18 months from the date of approval of this resolution. And then it provides if the applicant does not comply, the applicant shall appear before the board at its next scheduled meeting to explain, and the board reserves the right to revoke the planned waterfront special permit or impose additional conditions. So it would not require a resolution by this board to essentially continue. It's just that they would come in and provide periodic reports to the board as to what is going on at the site. And as Ms. Klein pointed out, a demolition permit has been pulled. An electrical permit has now been pulled to get the temporary power. There was originally a hope that it could be solar power, but that did not work. So they have to do that. They have to get, Con Ed has to come back once the temporary platform is built and it's hooked up to then actually put the power on. I think that's about a 10-day period for that to take place. As Ms. Klein also indicated, they've retained the services of a company to review all the test results we've gotten from the Austining Children's Center and to then make determinations as to any soil samples that need to be taken on the Hudson Step site to see if there's any contamination at that particular location. Because as the board is aware, the historic Smith Robinson House is the structure that is closest to the property line of the two properties.
Comments on the board?
Yeah, you go for it.
Please.
All right, so 3 months ago, Stuart, something that you did mention is like, and we can revoke special permit, if we don't see, if the board feels that it's appropriate, I guess, at that point. So I just want to make sure,
There is a provision in the,
Correct, that we
in the
can revoke.
resolution that the board reserves the right to revoke or impose additional conditions. That is correct.
thank you. So 3 months ago, when we passed this resolution, prior to that, you came in front of us. You explained the situation, why you needed this special permit. You had a plan. Went through a building department process. You knew that you needed electricity to proceed with the demolition of this particular project.
We did not know at that point, actually. We knew in August when we applied for the demolition permit in August, and then hired consultants to come in to do the demolition, realized that, well, they tried to get the solar equipment, and they could not find it. It was not, we couldn't get it. So that's when we started to go through the process of trying to get the temporary electric service to the property. It was
But
after
what
the
I'm
demolition
hearing,
permit.
and excuses. Okay? Because literally nothing has happened in the past 3 months. Don't have solar panels, solar power, you have no electricity, and now you're making another excuse about a soil testing. Not done. Okay? So you comment in front of us with nothing to show to this board. Okay? To me, when you have a site like that, you hire an architect, you have project managers. No rocket science to figure out what you need to do if you have the right team. You guys never had the right team. Never intend to do anything with this particular project. Again, I'm not thrilled. I wasn't thrilled this back in 4 years ago, well, in the beginning of this. I'm not thrilled now. Again, that's just me. So me seeing you again here, I was expecting to have all the demolition to be done. But again, nothing has happened. With some pretty flowers there previously over the summer, and that's pretty much the extent of the work. Good thing you actually kept up with the landscaping. I haven't seen anything else. I'm not even sure why you're doing here right now. Sorry.
Other comments?
Trustee Casada, I couldn't agree more. You know, you guys have had the property for years. I would ask you to take me through the process of trying to make the connection for me of how one didn't have electricity and how one didn't know they needed electricity, or the whole solar panels versus not solar panels. But I think Trustee Casada hit the nail on the head when he said that you guys never intended to do anything with this property. And this is no reflection of you personally, but just, people you work for. So I don't want you to take this personal. I know it's difficult being the person right there, but I said in July I didn't think they were going to do anything with this property. I don't think they're going to do anything with this property. And I think, I understand the board at the time saying, hey, we always want to make sure that we never want to come off as not giving, developers the fair shot. But let me just say, this is more than fair. At the moment where we're at right now, this is more than fair. Again, no reflection on you personally. But at this point, when someone says, we didn't know we needed electricity, well, to actually, take the building down. I mean, I don't know too much about construction, but something's
It was for the
No, no,
vibration
it's for
monitoring.
vibration testing for Smith
Yeah.
Robinson. No, it's not for
Yeah,
construction.
yeah,
I just want
yeah.
to be clear.
Well, for the demo,
Yeah.
but
It's not even for the demo.
Yeah.
It's to make sure that Smith Robinson is not damaged
Right.
when the Printex building comes down.
either way,
No, but
yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to clear it on
Thank you for the
record.
clarification. Either way, I mean, you guys have had plans. I mean, you had plans when you asked for a pilot. you've kind of known what you wanted to do. And I think the village, I thought in July that the village was more than fair. If we were to extend this, I don't know. We've been more than fair at this point.
Well, we're not asking for an extension. We're just here to give you an update. The demolition permit is valid through, I believe, February 1st. I'd have to double check, but, we're still within that time. So, we intend to follow through.
Comments on this end of the board?
As rare as it may be, it does happen once in a while that I agree with the majority of my colleagues. And I think that Trustee Casada and Bazemore kind of summed it up. I do thank you for keeping your word and coming to us 3 months later, as we both agreed on. I am reassured now more than ever, and very grateful that I voted against the permit that you got, not you, but that your client got, just because of a proven track record of inconsistencies and progress and timelines and just questionable behavior from the start of the project and the initial state to where we are now. I do understand that a lot has changed and the project has evolved, and there has been, through different ways and means, alleged ways to make it better. I also respect that your permit is valid till February as far as the demolition part goes. I don't have anything new or have learned anything new from this update to be able to have a better understanding or be better assured or give an update to constituents about that property at all as of right now from this update. And I don't really know how your client plans to rebuild trust and or get buy-in from a neighborhood that feels they have been so disrespected by your client for years. Until this day, I don't actually have an action plan on how that's being done or addressed. And I brought that up numerous times in the past as well. Even though it's a little not related to this particular item, it's still in relation to it. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
I think I've commented enough.
I'm not going to speculate on the intentions of your client and what they plan to do going forward, but it's lovely to see all of us on the board sharing same concerns. And while you may feel like we see an awful lot of you and you spend a lot of time in the village, the people we hear from a lot more are the folks who live in that neighborhood, who ask the question, how can this property still be allowed to exist in the condition that it is with years of willful neglect? And the question is raised frequently, would a property in other neighborhoods and other communities be allowed to exist as such an eyesore as has been permitted and perpetrated by your clients for so many years in that position, that location? So we hear a lot of that from our constituents, and that's why you're hearing and feeling so much animosity. The challenge that I have right now is procedurally what is appropriate, because we have very little role to play in the approval process. The vast majority of it is addressed by the land use boards. The one piece that comes to us is this waterfront special permit, which has to do with bonus density for when the development is eventually done. It's expired at this point. It expired a couple of weeks ago, I think on the 17th of October, right?
What expired, Mayor?
The waterfront special use
No,
permit?
it did not. No.
To revoke
You
it.
can revoke it if they are in violation of the resolution. They are, at this time, they are not in violation of the resolution.
Oh, okay.
They are
So
not
they
in-
have it. Okay.
Sorry, but 3 months ago, when we passed this special permit approval, said want to give him 3 months to the status. Pretty much the whole demolition should have been done by now, or at least half of it. So
So what
the
will,
provision is that we can revoke that permit. All agree in revoke. Hey,
Respectfully, sir, I disagree. That's not what the resolution says.
so when can we revoke the permit
If they in fact are in violation of the terms of this permit, they are not in violation at this time. They have 6 months on a demolition permit. And they have, so the permit is good till February. They can apply for a they can apply for renewal to the building department, and it's up to the building inspector at that time. At this point, they are not in violation of any of the provisions in this board's July resolution. This is a 3-month review, but it's not a 3-month where they have to come back to get it renewed. It's good overall for 18 months, but they are not in violation of any portion of the permit as of today.
Can we change it? Too late? No, that's actually
I would say it is, because they're working under the presumption of the resolution that you passed. So I think that you can't sort of after the fact say, oh, by the way, we're now going to
I didn't pass it,
change
but
it. But, well, the majority did.
okay.
But they're not in violation of the permit at this point.
okay. Well, then there's no action for us to take. You've heard our concerns. And they've been pretty consistently disappointed and concerned. So hopefully the next time that we see you, there'll have been some tangible progress, not just work.
I have more questions. So February, when the demolition expires and they haven't done anything, but then they have to come back in front of us and try to look for an extension of a special permit again?
The special permit expires no later than 18 months from the date of approval. For a demo permit, the application for a renewal goes to the building inspector. That's his determination.
I can swear that was not the risk.
You know, let's add to our discussion next week a clarification so that we all have a better understanding of exactly what was in the resolution
And I
that
will
we
agree
passed.
with Omar. I would like to, if that's the case, I would like to redo that resolution.
Well, I just don't know what to do with myself. There's way too much agreement happening on this board. Could you, we would like to, I think it would be helpful to all of us, not that I want to undermine all this lovely agreement that we have going on, but if we could have a look at that resolution if you could email it to us this week, and
I'll
we
send
could
it to
ask
everyone
further
again.
questions next
Sure,
week at the
why
work
not?
session. Thank you. All right, do we have any final questions for our guest?
Stuart,
Yes.
depending on the results of the soil that they may do and the probes that they have to do, they do have to remediate their site. They have to go back to the planning board. Because now
I
we're
don't
doing
believe
excavation,
I don't think it's a site plan resolution, no.
But
I
do
don't
they
think
have-
the site
but-
plan changes.
but now they're going to be, well, part of the site plan was already approved with excavation on it.
Yeah.
Because, okay. And then they have to, if they have to do some sort of remediation, they have to provide all the reports, all the testing, everything
have
that
to
it
be-
has
they'd
to
have to show
comply
that
with. within that.
Whatever they're taking out and whatever they're putting in is clean. That's correct. That's part of our excavation
Thank
chapter
you,
in the
sir.
code.
So you hire a consultant, correct?
Yes.
What is the time frame on that?
I know that they requested the documents from the Ossining Children's Center. From the building department, they did a FOIL request for those. And I'm not sure they have the documents yet. They were going to review them. I mean, they're going to want to start as soon as possible. They're
So
not
what-
going to do
So
testing
this
once
company
it
that
gets
you hire
low ground frozen.
is only looking at documents, or they're actually going to be doing testing on your site?
They will be doing testing. They
So
need
what
to
can-
see.
So the testing is not going to happen until after they review the documents that they FOIL for?
Yes, that is my understanding. They would like to review those documents so that they can know exactly where the spill was, so we can pinpoint where we will test the soil.
Okay, so I would like to find out, consultant, because we know you're a according to you, you said you have some sort of a location, sure, near the property line.
Well, that's what we've been told.
Okay, so what
We
is the
don't have
time
the- I
frame
have not
for
reviewed those
them to do the testing and come back with the results? Have you guys expedite that? Have you guys looked into that? How long does it take to do something like that?
I'm not sure, Dominic.
Could you come to the microphone? Folks at home can't hear you. Thank you, sir.
Requested documentation.
I'm not
And-
asking for the documentation. I'm
I
asking
can't-
if they have to do the testing, how long does the testing take?
That's going to depend on the documentation that we receive back to you. Unfortunately, I can't give you an answer on that.
You don't have an answer.
I do not have an answer. What I would tell you is that once they receive,
Take all the time you want.
once they receive the
Don't worry
documentation,
about it.
they're going to proceed with the testing and the remediation. That's the
Your time.
plan.
I'm not in a rush now.
Obviously, this isn't your first time doing it from the time you have the documentation, and so you have a clear understanding.
Just keep in mind, I'm sorry to interrupt. I am not the consultant.
Oh, right, you're the demo
Litigation.
guy. You're
We're-
not the, okay.
We're the
Then
construction
we won't
manager.
ask you to speak for something that's not in your
Unfortunately,
wheelhouse. Thank
I'd
you.
love to give you guys as much information as possible. We're the construction manager. They brought us on for, to get the project moving.
So
When
how
were you
many-
brought on?
Excuse me?
When were you brought on?
Probably in June. But I would think-
Probably,
Yeah, I don't remember the date exactly. I own the company, but we have a senior project manager that's heading up the entire project.
Oh, but you showed up.
I'm in the architectural end. Okay, so when we hire or when we work with a construction management company or a project management company, we have a schedule.
We
We know
do.
exactly how the
We do have a
subs
schedule.
work.
We do.
How long does it take?
We've provided a schedule
Okay,
to
so
ownership.
again, your answers are not enough for me.
Well,
Because as
ask
a
me a
project
question
manager, as a
specifically and I-
construction, excuse me, as a construction management, you should have a schedule already done.
I just
So
said
if you
I
don't
have a
know what the
schedule.
results are, how long something like that will take, that's not an answer. But that's okay. Again, take all the time you need.
Any final questions or comments on this subject? Thank you for joining us again this evening.
Okay, I'll pass your concerns on to my client.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I did have a couple of items on continuing business before we move on to new business. Manager Dottori was, when we were talking about the census, I think you were saying we did have that other meeting, and I just completely, I should have reported back that there was a Westchester Municipal Officials Luncheon last Friday. It was our Council of Governments annual meeting that took place in Sleepy Hollow. And our guest speakers at that meeting were County Executive George Latimer and Board of Legislative Chairs, Chair Ben Boykin. And we talked about a number of initiatives that for all of our governments to have shared services. That was a big focus of it. But we also had a discussion about the census. We are one of the many communities now that Commissioner Drummond has visited. She comes from the county. She was in the library with us beginning of this month. Was it just a couple of weeks ago? And there was.
I want to say it was the second.
Okay, so it was a few weeks ago. It was October 2nd at the Ossining Library that was organized for us by our county legislator, Catherine Borgia. And with each continuing conversation and we gather more information, what I took away from it, a couple of key thoughts. We already knew that this year's the census this round would be much more online than ever before. They expect most people to respond online or by phone, and you will be able to respond in many languages online or by phone. And if you respond online or by phone, then nobody has to come knocking on your door. If you don't respond online or by phone, then they will have to come knocking on your door. But what was particularly I found would be a helpful element is everybody gets 9 questions. There's no short form and long form. It's just 9 questions for every respondent, and you can respond on your cell phone. There are a lot of people have cell phones that don't have desktop or laptop computers, so that just makes it that much more accessible for people in our community. So I was really pleased about that. Worcester is one of the communities that already has a very active complete count committee. We're one of the few that's actually organized a group and had any sort of progress on that, but it's going to really be ramping up over the winter before the first mailings go out in March. I also want to remind folks, and I've sent it out in my Monday emails for the last couple of weeks, I have to correct one of the dates that was in there. Also we mentioned that we will be having our meeting in 2 weeks at the community center for that will include the presentation from the manager of her proposed 2020 budget. So that's November 6th. We're meeting at the community center, and that's when all of us get to see the budget for the first time. We'll see it, you'll see it, and we'll all delve into it. And we're going to delve into it in great detail the next morning, because we will have the first of a series of budget work sessions with the village board and staff that will take place at 16 Croton Avenue Village Hall. That's a full day meeting from 9 to 5 on November 7th. And it is the evening from 6 to 9 on November 12th. In the evening from 6 to 9 on November 14th. And then if necessary, if we still need to wrap up some items that came up during those previous 3 sessions, we'll be meeting on November 19th from 6 to 9, also at 16 Croton Avenue Village Hall. And then the public will have had 2 weeks to really delve into what's in the proposed budget, and we will welcome you back here in this room in the courthouse on November 20th for our public hearing on the proposed 2020 budget. And then 2 weeks after that, we'll be back in this room and we'll be looking at what is our final budget. After all of those hours of meeting with our department heads, understanding their priorities, looking at all of the proposed expenses and how we're allocating them for the next year, the final budget that we will be voting on will, we trust, be adopted on December 4th. At our village board meeting, December 4th. I mistyped on my Monday email. So December 4th in this meeting, we'll be back here to vote on the budget for 2020. All right. Any other continuing business before we move on? Madam Clerk.
Is there any new business of the board?
Seeing none.
Moving on to visitor recognition. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board?
Doesn't look like it.
Then can I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Okay, the motion is to adjourn to executive session for matters related to.
Collective bargaining and personnel regarding specific persons.
I'm going to add real property because I have a question about
Very
something.
good.
Okay. That's the motion that's on the floor. Can we have a? Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. With that, thank you very much for joining us. This meeting is adjourned to executive session.